you ever bought something and instantly regretted it? You know, you thought you might need it, but it turned out you absolutely didn't, and you shouldn't have bought it. It's best not to do that with something as big and bulky as a 1991 Mercedes W124 Estate, but that's what I did. And this car has basically nothing going for it. It's four-cylinder petrol, it's rusty, and it's got 212,000 miles. At least it was cheap. I bought this car in March 2021 when the head gasket failed on my red 230E Saloon 124. There it is in the middle. And in the 15 minutes we looked at it on this guy's drive, it actually looked okay. But as you can see there, I should have spotted that little telltale sign along the sill. Yep, you guessed it. As is quite common with these W124 estates, the rear window seals leak. The water gets in, runs all the way down over the rear arch, and ends up in the sill and absolutely just devours it. I'd like to think that it took quite a while for this to happen on this car, but it's a pretty advanced state of rust there at the moment, and I didn't realise that at all until I had it home. There's also a very nice fuel leak somewhere over the top of the rear subframe, and the self-leveling suspension spheres have failed. So here's a quick look at how the self-leveling suspension actually works. You can see in our handy parts catalogue. So it's not an airbag based system or anything like that, like you might find on the old W109 cars. This system actually is really all about these two self-leveling spheres at the back here. Now these have a little nitrogen sort of balloon in them, and the rest of the system is filled with Miller hydraulic oil. So in the engine bay you have the self-leveling pump and the fluid reservoir there. And what this does is keeps the whole system pressurized with the hydraulic fluid. When you cut to the back of the car, you have a self-leveling valve. Now the amount of weight in the back of the car causes an actuator arm on this valve to move up or down to tell the system whether it needs more or less height. It's very clever, very simple. So the car still has coil springs at the back, they're not shown here. Instead of traditional shock absorbers, they're basically hydraulic rams. They're not really shock absorbers at all. An actual damping force is provided by the fluid working against the nitrogen spheres in the accumulators here. So as the car moves over bumps, the little nitrogen spheres in the spheres are allowed to compress and expand, which actually gives you your damping effect. So in my car and quite a lot of other ones, when these spheres get old, they get brittle, they break, and then the entire assembly is allowed to fill with hydraulic fluid. That means you get effectively no damping and a very bouncy ride at the back. So first things first, we want to get a look under here and see what we're dealing with. Now the fuel leak was pretty much number one priority for me because it was right over the exhaust, and I was kind of paranoid every time I turned the car on that we'd get a fire, petrol and all that. So the subframe has got to come out, not least because the rear subframe mounts have failed, which is another bingo checkbox for the W124 series. I'll show you those in a moment. We swear by this 3-in-1 penetrating fluid at 427. It's good stuff. So this rear heat shield has to come out to get to the bar that holds the fuel tank on. As you can see, a lot of the bolts holding this on have sort of disappeared or rotted around themselves. So once you get that off, there should be a boot floor above you. I've just about still got mine, although it's looking very crusty. And then there's also this beam which holds the fuel tank on. And actually this is quite clever. It's in the literature for these cars. the beam is supposed to break during a rear collision and send the fuel tank downwards instead of presumably exploding it, which is always nice. So I'll just soak this bar in penetrating fluid, and I'm going to turn my attention then to the fuel pump, which is just in front of the fuel tank. Interestingly, these estates have 2 fuel pumps, whereas my 230 saloon only has 1, which is under the little cover, which is under the rear right seats. This has an extra fuel pump here, just in front of the tank. So I'm just going to disconnect all of these lines. Just let the last of the fuel dribble out of it. There wasn't much in it anyway because of that leak. Make sure you get a good high mag lick bucket there for the fuel to dribble into while you're at it. Love the look of those vaguely rotten fuel lines there. So back to this beam at the back. Essentially all you have to do is take the 4 nuts that are holding the beam on, take those off, and it'll drop down. And once you have all of your connections at the fuel tank disconnected, hopefully you should be ready to go. Or so you'd think, because you've still got the filler neck and there is a vent pipe, which is really annoying and really difficult to try and get down. You have to sort of feed it out through the filler neck hole. The thing pretty much supports the weight of the tank, so you've got to wrestle it down out of there. But once you've done that, and there's also this end unit as well, which mine had actually, the plug is disintegrated, so I've got to fix that when I'm putting this all back together. I'm sure that'll be really good fun. And when you finish with that, congratulations, you now have a car without a fuel tank. Hopefully your fuel tank's not as messy as mine is, because mine looks like it needs a good bit of cleaning. Not up the top, to be fair, but then again, it doesn't really get up there. And then we take a look at this shop of horrors. There's the filler neck suitably rotted through. Yeah. These are a terrible, terrible rot trap. Just anywhere in the back of these that dirt can collect, you bet it will. Thankfully the boot floor, not too bad, although it does look a little bit suspect over here. Just whatever underseal they used on these cars is fantastic stuff. It'll hold the shape of the thing long after the metal has left the chat. There's a nice aftermarket tow bar on there as well that's got to come off. But yeah, brilliant underseal. Just the problem is when the water is above it rather than underneath it, you just can't see where it's rotted. And the answer is it's rotted everywhere. Because when those back window seals go, it's just free for all, it's just Waterworld. Whatever year that film came out. That's what it's like. Kevin Costner, maybe, owned this car before I did. I don't know. So here's our nice rotten metal fuel line. It actually, once the subframe's out, because it's in the way, once the subframe's out, that shouldn't be too bad to replace, because it'll just be like doing a brake line, won't it? The famous last words. Oh, more rot. This is the little sort of pocket down the back next to where the spare wheel sits, and just all that was left was underseal holding the shape of this joint. So this is going to be a lot of welding. This car's going to take a lot of welding, and I've never welded before, but I've got a welder there and I'm going to have a go. What's the worst that can happen? As I say, it was a cheap car. I paid £500 for this, which is not much for a W124 estate, But I think it's probably on the money for a 124 estate that needs this much work. So handy dandy 3-in-1 spray freeing up these fuel lines. Let's just spray it on everything because it's all going to come apart. I'm going to try and bring this subframe down as one unit. If possible, I'd like to put it back together without taking the whole thing apart. Although I know that the bushes could all do with refreshing. The drive shaft donut there will have to come off to let me take this subframe down with the diff in it. Brake lines, I'd like not, because the brake lines all seem to be roughly okay, although you know what it's like, they could do with being changed. I'd like not to disconnect those. You know what it's like sliding down a slippery slope trying to grab desperately at every passing branch. You think you can skip jobs on this sort of thing, but you've eventually just got to do them all, so you might as well. It's a 15 and a 17 to take the fuel line off the pump. These little fuel line terminal connectors are always a 7 and an 8 on these old W124s. So under this panel is where you'll find your main sort of fuel pump, filter and accumulator setup. Each keeps the system pressurized and filters the fuel to make sure it's okay. There they are there. Pump on the right, filter in the middle and accumulator on the left. The rear ABS sensor also runs up through that panel and into the middle of onto the back seats. You can see it there. That'll have to come out when I'm taking the subframe down because it's connected into the diff. These hard lines are all looking a bit worse for wear, and you can see somebody's actually replaced those at some point in the past, so that'll have to be done again. Disconnecting this rear section of exhaust because it's in our way for taking the subframe off as well. It's incredible how far into these things you have to go to get components off them, you know. You think it's going to be a smallish job, well that's wishful thinking. As I say though, if I can get the subframe down with the diff in it and all in one piece, it'll give me good access to fix that fuel leak and do the welding on the subframe mounts. This whole multi-link suspension system looks a little bit crusty on this car, which is not unexpected to be fair. You've only got to take 3 of these bolts out of the drive shaft donut to be able to get it free, and it will not drop out easily. It's going to take ignorance to get this separated. I love being underneath cars. It's kind of like a nice claustrophobia, if that makes sense. Like a weird productive claustrophobia. Oh yes. There's very little left of that inner arch. A good poke with the poking screwdriver reveals even more work to be done. This generally, you can take this to always be the case. Oh, so crunchy. Again with this underseal, you just don't know what's rotten. It's best to assume that everything is. These rear shock absorbers in this car, as I mentioned earlier, they're more like hydraulic rams. They are very expensive. I can't even remember off the top of my head how much they are now. I think possibly $250 each side. So you don't want to wreck them. You want to make sure they're still good. I don't think they go. They probably leak, and what you can do, I think, if they leak, is you can take them to a local like hydraulic ram shop, and they can put new seals in them for you, rather than buying new on those. So, you know, silver linings and all that. But the accumulator spheres definitely do have to be bought new. You can see the wonderful state of my sills here. This jacking point, I don't really trust it to hold any weight at all. That's why I've got the car supported on the subframe mount, which is going to cause problems down the line, of course. I'll have to shift the weight off that somehow when I go to bring the subframe down. Maybe I'll have to weld the sills before even. This, when I first decided I was going to try and weld this car, I thought it would be a few little holes, but I mean, that was silly. Who's been around classic cars for more than 5 minutes and thinks that a few little rot holes is a few little rot holes? It's just never the case.
I'm too old for this. I can't get down that quickly anymore.
Now these cars have what they call Sacco panels.
Named after Bruno Sacco, who designed them.
Of the car. When they're all in place, all of this is covered. So you can't see that there are big gaping holes in the sill all the way along.
Oh Lord!
But there they are.
Now to be fair, as we've said so many times before, you can't start stripping a yoke in a man's yard when you're trying to buy it off him. Like,
what do? You just have to lowball him and hope you were okay. This time we were not okay.
The ball was low, but the condition was even lower.
So,
how long? I'm not.
Oh, sit down there. You're fine.
Okay, good. My legs don't work like that anymore.
So pretty early on last year, I knew it would need sills, so I bought some sills. Like that. So this was it. Well, it's not.
Oh no! How long? Jesus, Connor. I'm just not that strong. So
what I'm gonna do is I'm literally just gonna weld the whole thing on top of the rot and just leave it.
I was actually having a conversation with a fella today. Shout out to Liam Neal if you're watching this. I met him in the shop when I was getting us our lovely pie for dinner. Nice. He was telling me about the beetle he's doing up, and somebody did what my dad would probably do, but went to the extreme where like you would patch over the old bits of rot, like a wee bit, like.
Yeah.
This fella just started patching like the whole car over the old car. So like instead of 2 heater channels, it had 4. Instead of 2 quarter panels, it had 4 quarter panels. And the underneath was just crumbling away. Like,
I don't understand that. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, who would do that? What an idiot. Anyway.
Well, what I'm going to do is obviously you want to keep as much of the original metal as possible. And I've never welded before, by the way, and can't find anyone else do well, so I'm going to do it myself. I'm just going to cut out the bits that I need. So like, there's a jacking point there. And just chop. Job done. Easy peasy, right? What could go wrong?
I mean, the theory is good.
Yeah. What we're going to have to do as well, and I didn't want to...
Do I have to get up? Ah!
Get up downstairs!
I can actually feel my knees crumble under me.
We're going to have to address the source of the problem, which is, as it always is with W124 states, is the rear windows. Now what happens here is the seals go.
Not the seals.
They stop singing Kiss from a Rose.
I was thinking...
These seals let water in through here, and it just rots. And what it's done is, it's rotted all the way down, all down this inner arch, and all the way along the sill on both sides.
Oh, that's good.
That's what you love to hear. So they're going to have to come out, so you're going to have to do that.
That's going to be fun.
Ugh, lefty loosey, isn't it?
Yep.
Why not, you stupid bastard? Fuck's sake.
The face of a man who's had enough.
Oh. That's not so bad. Time for the petrol to drip all over me. Welcome to Heddicksville. Population, you. Where's my big spanner?
You got your big spanner, Alan.
Is that rain?
Oh Lord. I'm about up, that's a lot.
It's just whatever's in this pipe. Which is more than you'd want, really.
It's more than you'd expect, yeah.
Right. Down on the corner.
No.
Okay, people. Up here.
Hang on, what was that?
Wasn't that like Elwood Blues?
No.
Alright, people. It's one of the other Blues Brothers songs, you know.
That narrows it down.
I'm in a Blues Brothers mood. Anyway, up here is your rear differential ABS sensor. And this only applies to...
Models with ABS?
No.
Well, yes.
No. This only applies to pre-facelift ABS models. If you got a pre-facelift ABS equipped car, the sensor for these is very expensive, so don't break it.
I
What?
thought you were about to give us something helpful there, but fair enough. Just
Don't break it, that is helpful.
that's just the gist of any working on the car. Just don't break what you're taking off.
Oh, get out of my way.
What's in your way?
This bracket thing. Be fine.
Bend it out of the way. It'll be alright.
No.
Don't need it.
I need this car to go back together.
Oh, that seems satisfying.
Yeah, it's very satisfying. Tell you what, this 3-in-1 penetrating stuff,
They're not paying us. Shut up.
but you actually couldn't beat it. Maybe they will pay us. Maybe they'll see this and go, there's a great couple of lads there. They love using our penetrating fluid.
Please don't say that. We've gone a long way from the just spit on it. We've gone to penetrating fluid now.
Ooh,
That's some amount of threads, boy.
no, I think it's done. It's just
Just stuck in the brackets.
it's in the way. Yeah. See. Oh, blue thread locker, my nemesis. Oh shit! Yeah, I forgot about this.
What?
It's very difficult to get out.
Why? Because it's been stuck in there for so long. Also, it's magnetic.
Yeah. I need something to split it with.
You need something to pry it out with.
Yeah.
That's
There's a flat-headed screwdriver there somewhere.
all right. That's good.
Down on the corner.
That was good, actually.
Not good enough. Why am I here when I could be at home?
Yeah, we should point that out. We're not even in our own garage. We're back in one of the garages we used to work in because this hasn't made it to our house yet.
This is Miami Vice Series 3 episode.
That's the most niche reference.
The episode where 3 or 4 episodes after the Daytona got destroyed, they're back in the Daytona. No context.
And then the next episode, back in the Testarossa. There's a spider by my head. I'm going to squish it. He's dead now.
R.I.P.
I wasn't going to become Spider-Man.
No.
Better idea.
Well,
Unplug it in the car.
so here I am in the rear of this car, and as you can see, the interior's still in it because I hoped I wouldn't have to take it out, but here we are. Here we are. Actually, that comes out quite nicely, doesn't it?
No, but Spotify's put me on like a pop playlist, and it's just been like
Early 2000s pop.
early noughties, late noughties.
At a pop concert.
All like pop girl groups.
You
still don't know what that
Is it Girls Loud?
It is.
Yeah.
Good, Matt. Well, I don't know if that was
That's
good.
not a good man moment, that's a... right.
So, you know, as I said, why not just unplug it? Here's the plug, so then we just, you know... I thought that
Not so easy, is it?
that would be more ceremonious than that. Unplug it. There you go.
Lovely, and we'll get a star head and we'll get that out of there.
Yep, and then feed that down through. Then we're ready to take our subframe out.
Good to go. Yeah, go on ahead. Lovely.
We need to take off the drop links for the anti-roll bar. Now the anti-roll bar is designed to help the vehicle handle better by linking the two opposite sides of the car.
I then got to work disconnecting those hydraulic shocks we mentioned earlier. You can see here this is very satisfying, that mineral oil just dribbling out. This car actually holds the oil in the system, which is quite rare, I find. Most of them just leak out because the lines get neglected. And here you can see a better view of the horrors that lie beneath once those shocks are out of the way. For good measure, I've taken the back bumper off, although it actually looks not too bad under here. It doesn't look like this rear section will actually need any assistance, which is always nice to see. So here is the rear window removed. Unfortunately, I didn't have the tripod to film me doing this, but I basically just went around it with the plastic trim remover. Managed to save the window seal and the glass, but that's a scary job. Just take it very slowly. And before I wrap this episode up, I couldn't resist getting out the angle grinder with this paint and rust removal disc. Although unfortunately it looks like we've got work cut out for us down under here because that underseal really is thick. You can see here I did a nice job up by the window seal, but this is all going to have to come off because there's rust down the inside of this, and if we don't fix this properly it's just going to come back. These paint discs create a lot of, I don't even know what you'd call it, particulate in the air, so just ventilate the room very well when you're using these. Okay, I think that's enough horror for one episode. Stick around, subscribe, like the video if you liked it, and I'll hopefully try and get back to this and continue it as soon as possible, especially because my dad wants the car out of the shed and it's been in there for too long already. So all that remains is to say good luck, and I'll see you in the next one.